Wayne Bailey, I'm the wine grower here at Youngberg Hill. Salud.
This podcast is sponsored by Release Winery. Every wine tells a story. Each growing season, it's our goal to create an artisan Napa Valley wine of exceptional quality. Join us as the story of this ultra-limited wine continues. Learn more at releasewinery.com.
Well, considering that I live here, I don't go to work at all. I just wake up and start living. We operate like a bed and breakfast. We've got 9 guest rooms and overlooking the vineyard and the entire valley and the Coast Range. And of course, we're in great proximity to McMinnville. And of course, and we have our tasting room up here as well. We're growing Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, and Pinot Gris. I also buy some fruit to make a Pinot Blanc and Grenache and Syrah. Sometimes I make a blend, sometimes I bottle them separately. This coming year, 2018 vintage, we're releasing our first rosé from Pinot Noir fruit. So we're continuing to expand. Later this year, we'll be releasing our first vintage of sparkling, coming from fruit here in the valley. So got a lot of different things going. We have 50 acres total, 23 acres planted in vines, 20 of those producing 3 acres that we just planted this last fall. 15 of that, actually 18 of that is Pinot Noir, all the way back from 30-year-old vines on owned root, some of the original vines. And then we also have 2.5 acres of Chardonnay and 2.5 acres of Pinot Gris. Well, it was later up here than it was in California, but as with most places, you know, when you get up farther north, up in the Dundee area and so on, the density of vineyards close to each other. And back then, a lot of them were farmed by the same people with the same equipment and everything else. You had to just spread like wildfire. So fortunately, as you can see, we're somewhat isolated, somewhat further away. We're colder, higher in altitude. All those things add up to being able to so far not have any influence of it. When we first bought the property, my comment was always, when. But ultimately, I'm to the point now where I'm thinking if. That's great. I'd love to have 50-year-old vines on the hill. I can tell you the rosé, the Syrah, the Grenache, and the sparkling wine that we're making are all because of her, not because of me.
Oh, really?
If it were me, again, I'd be growing Pinot and Chardonnay, be very happy. But actually, in reality, I'm learning a lot through the process. Tasting still wine that is going to be making the sparkling is a whole different scenario. Because you're just, I'm not used to doing it. So to do that and be able to try to understand this wine that you're tasting now that is going to be in bottle for 2 or 3 years before you dosage and then, make a final product is quite a learning experience.
Daunting, I would
think. Yeah. One of the things I love about our industry is that we're constantly learning. It starts with every vintage. Every vintage is very uniquely different because the weather is different every year. So every year, the fruit coming into the winery is a new experience. So that's part of it. Working with other fruits such as Grenache or Syrah coming out of Southern Oregon, that's always a learning experience. And by virtue of working with that fruit, it may teach you something in terms of, well, we've always done Pinot Noir this way. What if we did something like that that we're doing for the Grenache, and vice versa. So it's always experimentation and working. And I make my wine at Robert Britton's facility, and so Robert is always there, and we're always going back and forth and tasting each other's wine, going through the cellar, and so that's part of the learning experience as well. Absolutely. I'm a blank sheet of paper, as my wife would say.